We are going to go ahead and start. Welcome to the July 18th, 2023 City of Angels Camp City Council meeting. Roll call, please, Rose.
Mayor Herndon.
Present.
Vice Mayor Moncada is absent. Councilmember Tiscornia. Present. Councilmember Brolio. Present. Councilmember Sherrado.
Present.
Staff is present.
Okay, Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3, to report out of closed session, a direction was given to staff on both items A and B. Item 4 is the approval of the agenda as posted or amended. Anybody have any necessary amendments to the agenda? Any members of the public have any amendments? Okay, so I'd be looking for a motion for approval of the agenda as posted.
So
Alvin? Caroline? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes on a 401. Rose? Item 5 is public comment. The public may address the council on any item of public interest not otherwise on the agenda that is within the jurisdiction of the city. No action may be taken. Matters to be addressed may be referred to city staff or placed on a subsequent meeting agenda, and speakers will be limited to 5 minutes per person. Do we have any members of the public that would like to speak? Okay, so we'll have you go up to the podium. I believe there's a sign-in sheet.
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay, there
Sorry.
is not a sign-in
Tell me
sheet,
your
but
name.
if you can
Sure.
state your name for us.
my name is Eric Griffin.
Go ahead.
Hello, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. I just wanted to stop by. As I had mentioned, my name is Eric Griffin, and I am the superintendent of Mark Laney Elementary School District. I just wanted to take a moment to introduce myself and let you know that I'm very pleased to be in this community and looking forward to working with the council and, police and fire department as well as I'm embarked on this journey in the district. So I'm very happy to be here.
Where are you from, Eric? Will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I am moving here from Tuchula, which, if you're not familiar, is on the 99, kind of in the Central Valley, in Fresno, South Sacramento. So, I worked in Tuchula Elementary School District for several years, about 10 years. Taught anywhere from transitional kindergarten, babies, all the way up to 8th grade. So I have lots of experience in the elementary realm. Most recently, I was the Director of Educational Services in Tuchula Elementary School District. And I am thrilled to be joining the Mark Laney Elementary team. So,
And you said it was Griffin?
Griffin,
Okay.
Griffin.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Welcome.
We're sorry it's so hot here because you probably wanted to leave the heat.
Yeah, thanks for going to the mountains. I do. Anyway, nice to meet all of you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for Okay, any other members of the public? Rose, do we have anybody online or?
We do, no, but no comment.
No comment. Okay, I'll close public comment. Item number 6 is consent agenda. It looks like we have a handful of 4 items on consent. So does anybody have any reason to pull any of the items that are on the consent agenda? Any members of the public? Okay, so I'd be looking for a motion for those items.
So moved.
Alvin? A second? Gretel? All approved? Or, I'm sorry, all in favor? Any opposed? So that's gonna pass on a 401. Approved. Moving on to item 7 is our regular agenda. And item A is a public hearing for ordinance number 532. This is the second reading to approve the rezone of 320 or so acres of parcels that are identified for consistency with the general plan of 2020. Amy August.
Mayor and council members, this is 14 years in the making. And with your approval tonight, we will finally be in compliance with our general plan relative to zoning most of the parcels in the city, all but about half dozen. So we have not received any additional objections. We did receive one more agreement from the public, and I'd be happy to answer any other questions you might have, but otherwise, that's all I have.
I don't have anything. Any members of the public need to speak on this? Okay. Please state your name.
Amanda Conworth, lives right here in Angels. I would like to comment on the SP zoning that is presented in this. I made my comment to the planning commission, and I'm still unclear and want clarification on ag operations. So according from the planning commission and what is being proposed, that there still needs to be a master plan for ag operations on the SP zoning. Well, I am grateful that the planning commission added that in, as a option for SP planning. It's still unclear what is the requirements for those types of operations going forward. So for example, am I gonna need a master plan for cows eating the grass? I mean, that seems a little ridiculous. So I think I just want a little bit more clarification of what that expansion or what that means when it comes to that. I understand what it means with development, with housing, or any commercial or other zoning, but it is still really unclear on what those requirements will be. And I am concerned about that because it just, how do you create a master plan when it's just everyday operation? And what is the expectations and will it impact ag operations currently on those particular zones? And the zoning that I'm talking about are the property that go from Greenhorn Creek Drive all the way to Fairview to the back of Mud Point. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, Amy, what can you tell us about SP zoning and the clarification of requirements and when that happened?
When this concern was brought up to us, we changed the zoning district. It is not currently published online because the change finished being implemented about a month ago. We made agricultural operations, existing uses, permitted uses that do not require a specific plan or any plan. Ag operations are permitted, period. If you were to want to build a barn today, you would need a building permit. If you want to build a barn tomorrow on this property, you would need a building permit. We went out of our way to make sure that those concerns were addressed so that ag would clearly be a permitted use. And so that is in fact what we did. We changed the code to specifically address this as well as other existing uses.
So if you're just grazing cattle today,
You're
you
fine.
can continue to graze, but if you want to put in 500 acres of grapes, then you would have to,
No,
no,
because ag is permitted.
ag is ag.
Exactly. If you want to put in housing development, you're going to need a specific plan.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying that. Thank you. Okay, we got that cleared up. Anybody have any other comments before we technically open the public hearing, I suppose? So before I close the public hearing? So I'm going to close the public hearing on this item and ready for anybody's consideration on this matter.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 532.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ew. Thanks. Okay, item B is ordinance 533. No, I'm over here. Okay, this is to waive the first reading, hold a public hearing, and schedule August 1st for the second reading to introduce an ordinance Adding a new chapter 8.50, critical infrastructure, wildfire risk, and flood hazard protection to Title 8, health and safety of the Angels Camp Municipal Code to protect critical infrastructure, wildfire risk, and flood hazards, Inc.
Mayor and council members, we reviewed statewide most ordinances similar to this in rural counties and rural cities. And that is what you see before you is an amalgamation of all of those. So it's fairly broad. We talk about avoiding flood hazard areas, which means most of our creeks, as well as high fire hazard areas, critical infrastructure, and we use our multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan as a guide for determining what those are. And it basically, we're looking at those definitions are what are basically the most critical part of this. We talk about youth facilities, we talk about government buildings, we talk about schools, all those types of things. And the key here is that within 50 feet of those critical infrastructure areas, you would not be camping, you would not be, well, camping is sort of the biggie here. And there's only one exception to the 50-foot setback, and that is 250 feet from youth serving facilities, which are described in here. And often some jurisdictions make it, I believe, 300. I don't know what the code is for potential when you've got somebody who's a registered sex offender, not being within a certain distance of a school. But most of the jurisdictions we looked at, they use 250 feet. So that is what we are proposing here. Some go as little as 20. But we actually looked at some of our critical infrastructure and determined that 50 seemed more appropriate in order for our fire vehicles, ambulances to get in and out quickly if they needed to get there without having to stop and relocate people out of the way. I'm going to stop there and open it up for questions because I imagine you might have many. But in a nutshell, that's what that is to keep this from becoming an issue in terms of emergency response so that our people can get in and out as quickly as they need to.
Thank you. So we'll open the public hearing at this time. And I look for anybody to make any comments or questions on this one. Nobody online? Okay, so we'll close that, and I know we have questions. I'm assuming several of us have questions. So anybody have any? Start. Gretel, start with you.
No, I mean, I think that it's a good idea. I don't have any questions.
I have two questions. The park, I mean, I know we've addressed camping, and will the park be identified as a government facility because it's owned by the government, or that it's under its own regulation because it's park and rec?
We're going to consider it a government facility.
Okay. And then my second question would be for Chief Ellis, and I'm wondering if you could speak to the likelihood of how enforceable this is, in your opinion. Is this strong enough language for you in the field?
I think it's strong enough language, but every situation is different, so it's hard to make unless we know what the exact situation is in the scenario on how it will be enforced. Hopefully we can just get in compliance by education via the municipal code that gets created with this and get people to move on that weekend. There's certain locations we're not allowed to set up shop.
So I know you and I talked, have you talked to any other cities or municipalities that have something similar to this and how much success they've had? Or is there ways, I'm just trying to figure out if we could learn from other mistakes that have been made to improve ours before we do it.
I think ours is written as broadly as it possibly could, and that's where my discretionary decisions are gonna come and be more difficult because I'm gonna have to make a determination as to some of these locations as to whether it actually meets the criteria for these things. And you know, reading this is very broad. And I know Amy mentioned the park, but we're also working on part of the hazard mitigation plan, a whole separate issue dealing with the park, municipal codes that will be issued specifically with the park.
I think this is a good first step. It was a pretty big gap in our enforcement options, but there's still additional room. So, you know, to look at a health and hygiene.
Yeah, maintenance and ability to keep areas clean.
So there's
gonna layer some more on.
So there's gonna be some additional ordinances that are gonna come, that will just kind of help give him more ability for enforcement.
Is this similar to, or I mean, is it pretty close in line with the county and what the county has in place?
We used as models both the city and the county. We went slightly broader than the county in terms of a distance, for example. Ditto with the city. I believe they were using 20 feet in both of them.
So we increased it to 50?
We
and
increased
there's-
it to 50. I've
Okay.
seen it larger in some jurisdictions. I've not seen it smaller.
So, you know, kind of what was important is, you know, kind of starting with a baseline or other jurisdictions and then identifying if that works for us. So it was visiting particular pain points that we have within our city to determine 25 is sufficient. And that's why we came up with 50, because in some areas, 25 doesn't do anything. So we needed to expand that. So where we would find, you know, we didn't just take anything, just face value, we identified how it would fit with our, you know, kind of how our layout is. We also made sure that, you know, Public Works looked at it, Fire Chief looked at it, the Police Chief looked at it, I looked at it, Planning looked at it. We all kind of looked at it from our own lens to make sure that it meets the concerns that we're faced with on a daily basis. Because we're all being impacted by the county.
And Deb, obviously you guys have gone through
And
it
legal
with your
been through it with
fine
the
tooth
fine-tooth comb.
This is Nubia's expertise, so she's done that kind of these, deal with the different situations for different clients, and this has been done for thoroughly.
I have one question.
Oh.
So is the infrastructure, is it from the property line or is it from buildings or where is that? I may have missed it in here, I didn't see it. And if it's 50 feet, 100 feet or whatever the footage is.
You know what? We discussed that at our meeting when all the departments went over it. And we intended to put in a provision that said from the property line when it was,
So it's on critical infrastructure.
it's gonna be in the 50-foot setback. Hold on. Sorry, I don't know that off the top.
You're fine, I just.
Should be in is 8.5.0. Yep, we did not put that in there, and we intended to say within 50 feet of critical infrastructure, within 50 feet.
Under 8.50,
Excuse me.
under 8.50.
Yeah, 8.50.030.
So it just says within 50 feet of critical infrastructure and then within 50 feet of entrance.
I'm not sure, Amy, look at your definition of critical infrastructure. It means the boundaries of real property.
That's where we put it.
That's where it is.
That's right.
So-
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
We didn't put it down.
Gotcha, 50, okay. And then the last thing is youth facility. Does that cover like, I'll just use AMA and the town, which isn't in city limits, but, does it cover schools?
Schools, yeah, so if you look at critical infrastructure definition as well, it's listed schools and youth serving facilities.
Okay. So
And even childcare with more than 12 students, or 12.
yeah,
Preschools or.
Preschool,
so it's pretty broad.
daycare, public, private, public libraries, city playgrounds, and parks.
Yes, that's okay.
Great. Happy.
That's not under critical.
So-
There's 16 critical infrastructures there, so
Yeah.
a lot.
All right, so this is gonna come back on August 1st for the second reading, and I look forward to that happening. In the meantime, thank you so much. That's something we've been eagerly awaiting.
Yes, thank you.
Fantastic. There was nobody online, right, Rose, that had their hand up?
They're not.
Nobody's
No
speaking,
comment.
okay. Just holler if you see a hand go up or what have you. Item C, authorizing a $60,000 charge, change order to add a second bathroom stall in conjunction with the construction of the Utica Park bathrooms. Amy.
I believe we've discussed this in the past, but basically we've got one stall right now that we're funding under the grant and looking at it.
Is that like a unisex bathroom? Sorry.
Both would be unisex.
Okay.
ADA and unisex. So, our guy has given us the cost estimates. We've included that in the budget. He's just waiting for a thumbs up to finish the design. And that's all I have.
So this was specifically identified in the 2024 budget.
Right.
I just don't have the quarter two designs for it, so.
Yes. That's all. And this is the only thing holding up design, and we can see it,
Yeah,
maybe? Or
yeah,
both?
actually they're prefab. So there's not
Yeah.
a lot of design to see on this. It's all the other stuff that we get to see on this.
Yeah.
Bathroom. But we'll blend.
But unnecessary.
But it's necessary.
Very necessary. Questions, comments?
No.
Public?
It's a necessity.
Bathroom, online? Okay, so bringing it back, I will make the motion for the $60,000 change order. I like bathrooms. Alvin? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Item D is abatement approval of 3 parcels in violation of chapter 8.10 City of Angels Municipal Code, which is the abatement of weeds and rubbish. Nathan Fry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. So before you, a little background. Every year we send out notices for lots of vacant property that's a violation of the weed abatement code. This year we sent out 196 notices on May 5th. These 3 parcels that are in here were included in the 196. Come June 7th, they still were not cut. There was been no conversation with the property owner. And so we sent out a certified mailing to notice to have that abated. 2 of them came back undeliverable. 1 of them came back signed that they received it. To date, there still has been 0 email or conversation with property or any of the 3 property owners. To my knowledge, I haven't been out there this week, but last week they still hadn't been cut. And so before you, we're looking for direction to have those properties abated by a contractor and then bring it back to you for approval of the cost and added to the county tax assessor's roll.
Are any of the repeat customers from last year?
These are not, no. And the one that we did have last year, it seriously got handled, the same owner, and it was cut this year with 0 issue.
Did you happen to look at the addresses that we used on these 2 from last year, and did they change?
A couple of them had changed, one of them was the same. So for whatever reason, I'm not sure if they're not following up with changing their mailing address at the county tax assessor's office. That's my belief.
Fairly common.
Yeah, fairly common.
You got a question? Any members of the public, questions or comments on this? Okay, bringing it back, looking for a motion for the mitigation. Oh, you do.
I'm so sorry. Do we charge them for the administrative fees for this too, and like the certified mail, and that all get tacked on? It's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Okay,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Go in again, we are just all agreeable on that. Going to item E. This is to conduct a public hearing to review the past use of Community Development Block Grant Fund CDBG. Rebecca.
So in 2020, I think May of 2020, City Council approved a resolution, giving authority for the city to apply for CDBG grant funds for, funding, specifically for, a firehouse. It was a grand total of it was 250,000. Shortly after that, there was contract, with Dennis Dodd Architects. They basically, yes, forget that, but anyway. And that was a contract, I think, for $205,000 at the time that was, entered into. There's been, when I came on, there wasn't, a lot of movement. I think there had been some initial conversations in terms of which direction to go. And so when I came on, I just said, just keep going. I mean, the grant's there, so, they can only be used for plans. So he continued to go. I think we're still following up with him on some final invoices, but I think when everything's said and done, it's only gonna be like 90,000 total. So did increase goal 250,000. And ultimately it's for just a one phase of a firehouse. And that was to be used as the rationale for a CDBG grant, which is the next item. So this public hearing is really just to say, we're gonna close it out, submit all of our reimbursements through CDBG, get it closed out.
Okay. So at this time, we'll open the public hearing and receive public comment on this, if anyone has any public comment. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to staff. Do you have any questions or comments on this one?
I have a question.
Okay.
Where was the new fire department going? Like, where did they do this?
Monte Verde.
Okay, so is that something that we can, since the grant is there, if we
have the plans.
We have the plans, they can be moved?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And added to, or, okay.
Yeah. So the idea with it was to allow phasing of it. So kind of, it would be a metal structure building, but to be able to add to it, if additional grant funding was identified. So the first phase, the first kind of development plans was specific to that one phase with the idea that you could add on to it. So it wasn't.
Could we use that additional monies and ask for anything more? No. Okay.
That was the issue with that CDBG grant and with the other CDBG grant that's on the next item is it's extremely restrictive. So you couldn't do anything other than a firehouse.
But could you add on to the firehouse that he proposed?
Only for fire.
Right. But I mean, like additional stalls or whatever.
If you had grant funding or you had a funding source, yeah.
But you can't use the rest of that 250.
No, that was only for and only for planning as it pertains to the firehouse. So the moment you started getting into, adding a city council chamber or adding, attaching it to the police department or
but I'm just saying
Any kind of redesign.
But any redesign of the original plan, whether it was for fire or not. Let's say he designed, I don't see it. So let's say he designed the firehouse to be this big.
Mm-hmm.
Can we, since we only use 90,000 of that and there's 250,000, can we go, hey, can you make this a little bit bigger?
No. So the end of the grant was it June 30th? Yeah.
Okay.
So that grant had been open. So we were just trying to get him to finish what he had because it was about to expire.
That was my question.
Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you.
But we tried to be as broad in the direction as possible so that we could encompass potential additional phases for expansion of the firehouse.
Yeah, okay.
Under that 250, without limiting it to that first phase. But and we'll go on to this at the next item, but when the dollars started shrinking, we really tried to just pan it down to about one.
So this is a public hearing. Are you Are we coming back on this, or are you looking for direction on, you need a motion?
We just need to
Oh,
close.
okay.
Yes, that thing until there's that over.
Okay, we have one more question and then we'll move
So
forward.
there are a set of plans then, a set
Yes.
of legit drawn up
Yeah.
plan
Yep.
that's 100 by 20 with
Yep.
living quarters. So I would really like to see
Yeah.
those at some
So-
point soon, or whatever. Oh, okay.
And get his wet signature on those before you let him go.
Yeah.
They're notorious.
And then, what else? They don't answer, you can't spend any more of it, we only spent 90. 230 for the man. I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion from Alvin.
Good close.
To close the.
Okay.
Gretel, all in favor?
Aye.
401, Rose. Okay, so now we will move on to the CDBG grant continuance. This is a public hearing and receive public comment regarding the CDBG program and possible activities and projects to be considered for funding under the 2023 Notice of Funding Availability, NOFA, for an application and for possible program income funding for one or more applications and discussion on the fire station project. Ooh, we have a
From the beginning.
discussion on this one. We got equal. But people will burn up.
Yeah.
So this is basically, what do you guys want to do? So we can continue through the public hearing and move that direction, or we cannot. So just to give you a little backstory, so in 2016, conversations were happening, and the fire chief's comments at that point was, you know, we need to have a fire response for our city located on the north end of town. And I think that still holds true, because the south end of town is where we're at right now. This is floodplain. It's not, you know, the ideal situation. And that was some of the reason why we got the grant from planning a new firehouse, was to get it out of here. Next slide. So there were multiple sites that were identified. The city has property all over the city. And so I'm not entirely sure who all was on the tour of all the different sites. I know Chief Rohrbaugh was, but I'm not sure if it was, you know, only the prior city administrator or the one before them. If city council was involved in those, but at the end of the day, multiple sites were identified as potential options, and then city council ultimately decided that Monte Verde was the central location, and the focus was to put all city services consolidated on premise. And that was the direction at that point. So some of the basis for that selection, when I kind of go back to documents, is that there was a, you know, perceived breakdown in the city's ability to respond with public services that would be easily available to the public, you know, during the fire. That was a countywide issue. That wasn't a city-only problem. That was a county-wide problem. You know, whether that was the basis or not for that decision, there wasn't ever a fully vetted plan of attack on that. And so we were utilizing a consultant that specialized in CDBG grant funding. And so they had come up with the idea of going after a CDBG grant that you could specifically use for the firehouse. So since Monte Verde, which is where the current city hall is right now, and the police department was what had been earmarked, that was why why those plans were designed that way. Next slide. So step one was design. So as I said, City Council approved Resolution 2022 approving that application for CDBG funding, $250,000 for planning technical assistance. There were two pathways that were directed to the architect. And so I was a little confused when I first came in, because even though the funding for CDBG was only limited to the firehouse, there were conversations that were happening with regards to additional phases that were outside of the parameters of CDBG that would have incorporated making some modifications to the current police department, putting in city council chambers. There was a lot more than just a firehouse. But, you know, the architect was kind of doing that piece almost pro bono. Because he was really interested in how that might be able to transition if we could find additional funding. But we never did, and there wasn't really any direction to find any additional funding, and so the focus really had been on CDBG. And so what he kind of looked at is, okay, so phase 1 would be fire station only, and then there would be phase 2, 3, 4, which would kind of expand out. And that would be if additional funding was identified. So this is phase 1. So this is what they came up with, and I don't know if we can make it bigger or not. No. But what it does is you can see there's 3 bays, okay, for the fire trucks. This is office space here. This is a kitchen back here. There's storage, you know, all that good stuff, bathrooms. So here's the problem. The problem is when all this conversation first started, CDBG was slated to be between $6 and $8 million. As time went on, it kept shrinking and shrinking and shrinking to the point where now, for this hearing, public hearing, it's $3 million. This building is just over 10,000 square feet. And how it is designed right here with everything in it would be anywhere between $600 and $800 per square foot. So if you take 10,000, 600, that's not 3 million. If it's 800, that's also not 3 million. So what 3 million gets you is a shell with nothing in it. And so that's kind of a tough pill to swallow. And I also am not entirely sure if it's the right location for it. So you can go to the next slide. This is the bigger concept drawing of it, but you can see, you know, there's a lot of kind of infill in here. Next slide. So, as I said, it was going to be over 6 million. Now it's 3. 3 million is not sufficient. There's PG&E easement hurdles, and we have state route for access limitations. They will permit emergency ingress egress, actually egress, in an emergency. But you have to remember that Caltrans shop project for the circulation, it's very, very close to that intersection where you would come off of 4. So it's already got a traffic circulation there, problem there anyway, so that's not really something Caltrans wants to have us utilize too much. Average circulation considerations is State Route 4 and 49 are both bottlenecked. Current firehouse, the one that we're in right now, is in floodplain. So alternative access options, you know, that really should be considered is that Foundry Lane access or even a Green Park Creek, Angel Oaks access. There is a property that we do have access to, and it was designated for a firehouse. And if the firehouse isn't put there, then it would revert back to the property owner. So, I mean, that's another option, but I just think it warrants kind of peeling everything back and really looking at what makes sense for the city. That is Angel Oaks Green Creek area.
South Sierra, right across from the park.
Yeah.
Cross from the Gateway Park?
Yeah. So additional issues that weren't fully contemplated when Monteverde was identified for the firehouse is that property is the public works courtyard. And so if you put the firehouse there and then you were to even phase it out, even if it's just there by itself, phase 1, or if you wanted to also expand onto it, the public works courtyard gets squeezed out of Monteverde. And, you know, the benefit of having the public works courtyard is that's where the public goes to sandbags. That's where it's a centralized location for materials and equipment for public works, which has been a problem because they're storing a lot of their equipment out on the wastewater treatment plant because we had a lot of theft out at the wastewater treatment plant. They've been having to store all of their vehicles actually within the police department, so we stopped getting all of our cars stolen. So not having access to that Monteverdi courtyard would be a squeeze for public works. The public health trailers would all have to be removed because we're storing them there as well. So we have an agreement with the public health department, with the county, to be able to have their public health store trailers there. And then ingress egress improvements for Monteverdi it's just not possible. You've got the cemetery on one side and you've got a home site on the other. So that bottleneck for public service and also the public would be an ingress egress problem. So pros and cons of shared facilities. So I kind of tried to look around to areas that have actually had shared facilities. It's kind of a mixed bag. So there's lots of scenarios where cities have done like a public safety campus where you have fire and police on one. There's very, very few, I was able to find one that had a complete city campus. And so that was a combined 24,800 square foot, 6A fire station, a 46,000 police station. You know, it's a large police department, but you also house city administration, council chambers, finance, parks and rec, IT, engineering, community development, and then it had a community room. And then there was also a shared parking area and also a public works facility all in that one. That was the only one that I could find that had like everyone on one campus. So the problem is, you know, whether to share or not share locations. The pros, economies of scale for construction, absolutely. Because you're doing, you know, all your environmental on one property. You know, you have a better likelihood of having, you know, a construction bid come in lower because they're going to do it all in one area. Shared spaces, there is a benefit to having shared spaces. You have to have individual conference rooms for each, you know, department. You can have some shared, and then there's operational benefits. The cons, site design challenges. Is it a big enough property? Also, there has to be a segregation between police and other departments. We've got evidence protection that you have to do, you know, investigation and interrogation rooms that have, all of that has to be separate. So you can't really have a cross contamination of those operations. And then competing priorities. So this is where funding starts becoming a challenge because you're going to want, you know, one department wants this many offices and the other department wants that many offices. So that can be a problem. So the takeaways is, you know, in order to do kind of a shared campus, or even a segregated campus, you have to have a plan, and that's where we're missing the mark right now because we really don't have a plan. And that plan has to include growth. We can't just build for what we have right now. We have to build for where we're going to be going. And that has to include like expansion of services and the different circulation issues that we have. We have an evacuation assessment that is just getting finished right now that you will be seeing hopefully by the next meeting, if not the next meeting, it will be the following one. But Council of Governments did do an evacuation needs assessment plan, and there's a lot of really good information in there that kind of helps us formulate where we should or where we shouldn't build kind of those public safety facilities. And then deciding is if shared space or separate spaces needs to be the policy, and not really, I haven't heard that one way or another specifically from this council. And then determining the funding sources that align with that policy. If the policy is, well, we want to try to have shared, you know, maybe it's not shared 100%, but maybe it's shared public safety or it's shared this. CDBG, the one that is included in here, can only be for the fire station. It cannot be used for anything else. So then it's a matter of, well, then maybe we need to look at alternative, you know, funding sources. I do have a meeting scheduled, I have a contact with USDA that I've worked with historically. And there are some grant opportunities through USDA that would, potentially fund public safety campus. So, I'm interested in, well, what does that look like and how much is the grant funding for? And is that aligned with our, kind of, some of those grants they look at the income levels within your jurisdiction. So there might be, some benefits to us doing it that way. So, kind of next steps. So if council said, no, we were happy with putting the fire station on Monteverde, and we just want to go for it, that grant, we can move forward with applying for it. I did issue an RFP for CDBG consulting services, because that's an area that we need help with. But it's $3 million and you're getting a shot. And then it's hoping that we can find some additional funding to fill in the gaps on that. The other thing is, kind of how this whole conversation started to begin with is we have very expensive fire equipment that we can't put in service because it doesn't fit here. Or it's gonna be left out in the open. And so that's not really taken care of highly expensive equipment either. So, it's certainly an option in a pinch for right now while we contemplate a longer range plan of identifying if there's, a metal building that we can put up here that would facilitate, at least having coverage on some of the larger equipment, because that's the problem. Just in the really immediate now period. While we come up with a better plan. But like I said, if you're interested in having us move forward on that, we will certainly do that. But just wanted to have your eyes wide open that you're not getting this big, nice fire department. You're getting a shop. And then fingers crossed.
All right, thank you for that staff report. So at this time, we're going to open the public hearing, and I hope to hear from everybody. So you can give us your direction on what you think we should be doing. Here's your shot. Anybody. And you're going to have any comments or insight on shared space or location or anything, Don?
Well, let me get it there, yes. The CDBG thing's really unfortunate because we thought that was going to really work out for us. I purchase rigs based on what we think is going to happen sometimes when we get something, we get a good deal. So we got $750,000 ladder truck on a CDBG grant, actually. And at the time when that happens, different city manager, different council, different police chief. But the thought at that point is the fire department was probably going to move over to the police department. The police department was going to, so we could put that ladder truck over there somewhere. Well, through transitions and changes in city managers and stuff and police chiefs, that sort of got axed because I would have never bought that ladder truck. I mean, it was a great deal. We need it for the city. It's awesome. But that was sort of how that got set up. And the same thing when we got our wildland vehicle, we were, at that time, the city manager that was here was going to move us at least temporarily to the current city hall. And we were going to be there, and we were going to create something right behind there. So at least we got both of our rigs there and do that. So that fell apart. So now you can see the big wildland fire truck is sitting outside in front because we can't put it in the base. And the ladder truck stays over at the police station. And that's the truck I really want to get in service because we have a fire engine here that's older, and it's costing me $25,000-$30,000 a year to do repairs on that rig all the time. So I'd like to get the newer truck in service on a regular basis. So for me, as a fire chief perspective, we need to get a place to get our proper equipment. Those are some of the two best rigs probably in the county. They need to be in service on a regular basis. So talk with Rebecca, we're trying to figure out how to do that and how to maneuver that. But that's sort of an immediate need. As far as the grand scheme of things in the future, I think that's a decision to, discuss what would be the best location for that. As a fire chief, I'm okay with, sharing a location. That's okay. I think we're small enough, where that could probably work. I'm also okay doing it separate, and we have to have more discussion about that. I mean, there are some properties that we've tried to work on. I'll just tell you, I mean, there's a property on Main Street that we were working with the Fallendor family on a couple ideas next to City Hall. We have the property on Sierra that was there. And so when the prices kept going down and down on the CDBG, I said, okay, wait, stop. We can't do what we were trying to do originally. Let's do something smaller. But the current city manager didn't want to do that at all. So she wouldn't entertain that idea. So as far as like giving direction even to the
current.
yeah. To our design team, we didn't get an option to even see how that may or may not work. So for me, I mean, obviously I do think that the primary station should be at the north end of town. That's my position on that for all access. We can get most places really quick. And obviously this isn't a floodplain, so it's not really appropriate. I do need to get somewhere to put these rigs. And
Is the ladder truck just out in the open?
No, it is stored inside.
It is
stored inside.
Good.
And, and we're sharing that with PD and some of Public Works. So I'd like to, even the wildland rig, I'd like to have it over inside under cover. We sort of made a makeshift cover behind the station. You've probably seen it back there to keep the sun off of it. I mean, that was sort of a temporary thing because we were trying to work on something. And, the CDBG, it just rolled bad. It kept rolling bad. And then we had COVID and that messed everything up too. So it was just a continuous spiral. So, I mean, I don't know if you have any questions for me. I'd be glad to speak, about any of the questions that you have. We just need to get at least a place for one of those fire trucks, even if it's just one stall somewhere, where whichever rig's in service can be parked in that spot to keep it out of the elements and keep it secure. That'd be great. And
Is that what a shell would provide for you? Just a shell would be?
Well, even the shell over there, I think it's going to be interesting because it'd be hard to, if it's just a metal building.
Yeah.
And we don't have any living quarters, where would the firefighters be to staff the rig, when the 911 call?
And
So
you
that's,
need air and you
that's,
need heat. And you
yeah,
need
and
all
so
that.
it's a struggle on that. I mean, we do have all the original plans. You can see how originally they were going to modify the police station, put in an EOC and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it was really, but that was pie in the sky. And then it just kept, the funding kept going down and down and down, so.
And I think we have a lot of unknowns going on right now, right? So, the Measure A.
I just wrote that down.
I don't know if that's gonna pass.
Yeah.
But if it does, maybe we can, get part grant funded through USDA, and then do part debt service utilizing, Measure A funds. Or maybe we can get the whole thing paid for with USDA. Or, I mean, there's a lot of unknowns right now that are just kind of right around the corner in terms of which way we can go. And as long as we have a direction from council of which way we want to go, then that's how we're going to find the appropriate funding source for it. But right now it's, like he said, try here, try there. No, don't want you to go there. Okay, now try this. And then, your whole focus is on CDBG and it's less than half of what had originally been identified as. So I just think, kind of taking a step back and trying to figure out what is really in the best interest of the city for a longer term perspective without cutting off public works, and isolating them all the way back out to the, out there. I mean, and I'm just thinking, you know, we want to do all of these road repairs. We have all of these capital infrastructure projects that we need to do. Does it make sense to have, you know, public works all the way, having true public works all the way out at the wastewater? So we do need central access to them. There's a way to do this. I think we just need, you know, like, what do you guys want to do? Want to do it, you know, kind of consolidated approach? Want to just kind of look at what makes sense, you know, individually? You know, look at if there are opportunities in terms of funding, if we can do some consolidated and like do the rest separate. I think there's multiple ways that we can do this. It's just that the status quo is one of them.
Do we need to be looking at a quick fix to plug a hole right now and then a long term, or do we need to parallel those two?
I think the quick fix is, you know, trying to figure out, is there a way that we can do something here in the interim, just kind of as a Band-Aid? So at least he has the equipment here so he can actually put it in service. It doesn't make sense to have it at PD because you don't have any, you need to have, it would have been perfect if City Hall didn't move to Monteverde. Because then he can have that. And there's, you know, there's bathroom facilities, shower facilities. He could have made do with that. But we're not close enough. It's gonna take time to get Old City Hall up to par. So that's not an option right this very moment. You can probably put up a kind of a metal, you know.
Yeah,
Like
we've talked about trying to do something on the side over here to get as long as we can and as high as we can on the side, far out, you know, but
we have to talk to engineering.
the restrictions on that
Yeah.
for the road, and we have to go out further, and everybody's gotta come evaluate it, see if it's possible. It is tight.
City Hall here. Was that ever thought about?
I
Yes,
thought
it
it was entertaining.
Was. Yeah, it was entertained by the whole prior council and administrator to move all over the place. Bring City Hall here,
Before it went to Monteverde?
in Monteverde, but then that facility wasn't ready for fire department to move into. So, I don't know, it was a whole mess, and I can say that the prior council, from Joe to Amanda and everybody, was to combine everything, was to make an emergency, and I think John was in on the talks, and it was to combine that facility and make that Hydrox facility
But that's
an emergency operations center that had multiple living for police and fire together, that had boardroom meetings for fire, police, city council, and whoever wanted to use it, to actually maybe have trainings that we could do to help pay for stuff. That's what we had kind of envisioned it to be. So,
How's the access over there?
I mean, it's okay.
Doable?
It's not really what we want. I mean, I don't think it'd be wise to spend money to try to make an exit point on Highway 4 or anything like that at this point, if that wasn't your master plan.
Right.
You know, it works. I mean, it could work. Again, we're just trying to get a place, and you know, and I've been here now for almost 9 years. And this project's been going on for about 5, trying to figure out where to put this, and every time we get close to something, then something else happens. You know, so otherwise, I feel bad coming here now. We've had the fire truck for a while, for the ladder truck at least. But yeah, when the last city administrator, she was gung ho on moving over here. So the whole thing was, okay, no matter what happens over there at the other facility, you guys will get this. We can put up something behind the city hall to put the fire truck in. So then we're okay. Well, then that's not gonna happen. You know, so it's been difficult. But I'm open to anything. You know, I'd love to work with Rebecca on some ideas. We can bring them back to you. I'm okay with a standalone fire station. You know, it could be much smaller. You know, just to have 1 or 2 fire trucks there. We can figure that out. We've talked about other stuff in the future. I think Foundry Lane is a great access point for us. Sierra would work for us really well. So yeah, I mean, however you wanted to move forward. But you will probably see something coming here really quick. on something to ask for some type of a budget adjustment and a change to try to figure out where to put that truck. So.
Thank you, John. Any other questions? Anybody else?
And Alvin mentioned, prior council decisions. I think a lot of what staff was directed to do by the prior administration and council was due to the amount of issues at the previous city hall. The insurance claim that was filed and we received could not fix the damages that, city hall had. It was a complete down to the studs. It was a total nuisance. And putting staff, whether it be fire or administration back in there with, from the risk management was not ideal. With the exposures that, that were being uncovered. So for Amy, about a year, we rented from Middleton, and then moved and used the insurance money to where City Hall is now. Part of that consolidation was also to cut down the overhead costs of staff. We were paying and having multiple staff members running back and forth between community development and City Hall and duplicating work. That was cost savings in the city from staff by consolidating the front desk area. Otherwise, we had 2 front desks at sometimes closing so others could go cover either City Hall. Council members ourselves were also going and covering the front desk because of staff issues for both community development and City Hall. So there was a lot of issues going on to what decided the current location. Everybody was happy at that time with the current location, knowing that at some point we would possibly have to move if this plan did not work, but the priority was always fire. We had gotten all this new equipment and nothing for it to be protected. So that is where all the other ideas started floating around, where not only was it feasible, was it safe for employees, did it meet the risk management, that was being advised by staff to get everybody where they were at. To John's point about working with the property and putting things up, I mean, back in the day, that was supposed to be a consolidated location with City Hall and police reservoir. So that original plan, to swap it out with PD, put it in with fire, it wasn't a bad idea, and the property owners were in agreement with doing that. But I think it just to be careful with the criticism of going back and why we got there, there was a lot of things happening. The amount of damages to city facilities, not having the money or the means to keep with the infrastructure. But I think at the end of the day, you know, it is, with all due respect to PD, you've got this amazing equipment and it's rapidly deteriorating because you don't have the facilities to protect it. The other thing to just note, and it was founded through the Butte Fire, is that a relationship to possibly change. But at that time, that relationship was not there. And we had to create our own EOC because the county was not participating with the city and allowing us to be into unified command. So when we get into EOC and things going like that, whether it be a pandemic, a fire, another incident that's going on, you can't always count on other jurisdictions to be, for you to be participating. And so that lesson learned through the council and to staff was we need to create a home for us to have our own unified command and EOC center. Because we did not want to find ourselves where we were fighting to get into and collaborate with the county. So that is where the EOC idea came from. And then it manifested during the pandemic. Thankfully, we were able to go into unified command during the pandemic, but there's always that what if. And you can't, you need to protect yourself and ensure that you have the resources to do what your staff need to do when there is an incident, no matter what it is. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I think that is the one major change that's how you do fire is there is now, and I think, that was kind of demonstrated in the workshop that we were just in, is there is much more of a unified command and unified collaboration when we are experiencing that. And so we did see that during the last two declared emergencies. And we just got a new OES director, Mr. Mazzoni, who comes with extensive experience. So I think it's going to get better. And I just think it's important that we are broaching those conversations with the county staff as well, just to make sure that we're part of that conversation, so they don't forget that we are also part of the county.
Okay, questions, comments, Alvin, you're up.
No, man, because I
Yeah.
had moved because it was not, the city hall was not well and needed a remodel, and we were storing stuff. Prior kind of did that. Oh, I mean, there's just a lot to consider. Do we need a helipad? Does it have to be at that location? Are we gonna do police, fire, public works, city hall together? There's just not a plan, like the first things are. For me, I just want a plan. Right now, I mean, these we have, what was it, 100 by 100 square foot for a rough number, makes a fire department for us, and give a 20-foot easement around the whole thing or something. But so 130 by 130 will fit a fire department in. But what does it take for PD? What does it take for public works? I kind of want to know a rough, so we can squeeze them all in or put them separate and look at our options, but we don't have a plan at the moment. So for me, I mean, I'm even willing to spend a little money.
I think having a facilities plan developed, and I think that's the missing component.
Yes, if Scott wants to sit down and go over what he thinks would be his ideal police station, then let's put it down on some piece of paper.
But it's beyond that though, because
Yeah,
it's
for the
looking
next
at
20
our
years.
general plan, it's looking at, it's taking in that kind of planning component, the multi-jurisdictional housing mitigation plan. The evacuation assessment that is about to come out. There's the growth factors that are included in our general plan as well as what we're seeing.
Right.
So I think all of that contemplated, having a consultant come in and really work with us to identify what that kind of overall master facility plan looks like.
And I mean, we never had any magical fund that we were going to fund all this, but we were grasping the straws for everything to try and fund, even what we got, even this environmental. So I think we have to have that component before we move forward with anything.
Yeah.
That's my own view.
So I think that's my question. You're gonna be looking for funding opportunities. And with those opportunities, there's gonna be molds to fit within and restrictions. So the USDA is gonna have their criteria, just like we know that CDBG will only allow fire, right? So will that determine an area? Like an area that can and can't be? I guess I'm thinking more along the lines of the disadvantaged areas when is there a benefit to saying that this area is more disadvantaged and that would get us more money and then we could kind of go that direction?
It depends on the granting source, because each funding source looks at their own disadvantage criteria.
Right.
So some are population driven. Well, we're 3,500 for the last census, so that's 500 over the threshold, right? And then other ones are looking at income criteria. So it depends on the.
So it does have different boundaries?
It has different boundaries depending on the funding source.
Okay.
But I think having plans is really the framework in order to tie that to any grant funding. Because, otherwise you're trying to back into what makes sense for that grant as opposed to here's what we need and then finding a solution that's going to match what our needs are.
Well, my opinion on this is that we move City Hall, which I've said for 2 years now, because I think that City Hall needs to be fixed. I've said that for years. And so that's, in my opinion, that's plan A. I think having public works yard makes sense where it is and police. and finding another spot for the fire. So that would be my direction. I think having a big campus with all of that stuff on just seems too much.
I think it's just, for me, it's all about funding. So how we can get the funding and what makes sense with funding. And I just don't think that Monteverde spot is big enough for all that we've just talked about. I mean, I think it's gonna have to be a compromise of two people, like either public works and police or fire and police, or I don't think we can get all three of them on there, and with City Hall, no way.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so when we're talking about a consultant, to help create a facilities plan, do they go out and look at the different properties and kind of come up with different options? Okay.
So in my history of working with facility planning consultants, they are looking at your current departmental structure, right? And then they're looking at what the potential growth needs to be. So if you have 4 staff today, but 20 years from now, you're gonna need 7. You don't wanna build office space for
Just
4.
today.
Because then you'll outgrow it really quickly. So, that's part of it. And then also combining that with the different, spaces that are available that make sense for those particular, strategies. And then we would also obviously make sure that we're incorporating those conversations with engineering planning to make sure that we have the capacity, in making sure that we're taking all of that into consideration with circulation. Ingress, egress, utilities. We don't want to put something somewhere where it's been identified as the, an evacuation issue.
That's one of the reasons it makes me move the fire department, is the entrance. That's why,
Not the fire there.
yeah, that's my
Oh,
direction.
because you can only do egress on emergencies only.
Yeah.
I'm all for you guys trying to come up with a solution. I agree with Caroline. I think that we can't do all 3 there at Monteverde. And I think it's a matter of which 2 should be there. And then we have to just fast track getting this ready for it to be used in a different manner, or the old city hall to be used in a different manner for one or the other, and plug those holes. And the sooner the better, without jeopardizing that we do need to have a grand plan. I am all for consolidating and having one local site. Maybe not for everything, because that does seem a little overwhelming, but if we can do a combined safety campus, I'm all for that. And then that would free up public works opportunities to be where they're at on Monteverde.
As long as the funding made sense.
Absolutely, as long as funding makes it. We don't want to throw good money after bad money and spend it and then turn, I mean, I appreciate that you're wanting the plan so that we don't do that and we don't just plug the holes in the wrong way. Absolutely.
Yeah, but you were stating having the plan and then looking for the funding.
But I honestly think it's 2 plans. I think it's an immediate fixed plan and then a long-term plan.
Right.
So I think it's twofold.
Because it's not gonna be, we can talk to our staff, engineering wise and building wise in terms of setback requirements. Can we do anything here, like in a pinch, just to at least protect the equipment while we're identifying the rest of where we need to go? And if we can, then great, and that's not gonna be very expensive, to deal with that, but it's definitely a short-term.
Great. On the funding piece, is preliminarily, can you go through and look at what funding would be available to combine 2 of the options we've talked about at Monteverde? Can you look at, see if there is funding available for a combined fire, police, or?
That's the conversation I'm gonna have with the USDA.
Okay, okay.
But I guess you can either spend money on 2 properties, or you can spend money on 1. If we're gonna put fire or police at Monteverde, I have to have somewhere for public, right? Which means then we're going to be paying
we're spending money in two places regardless, because the place we have right now is not big enough for what we need. We're gonna have to spend money in two places.
Well, no, so right now, the Monteberry is acting as the courtyard. It's a courtyard for Public Works and it's PD.
Right.
So if we kick Public Works out, they can't function out of the wastewater. So we would have to identify another site for them and we would have to build.
Right, that's what I just said.
Right. But so we wouldn't necessarily, so it's easier to find funding for police and fire.
For safety.
For
So
safety.
public works.
Yeah. Then
Public Works is
we want for City Hall.
You just like it there. You don't just like it there, do you?
With the courtyard or
Yeah.
the police department? Actually, it's perfectly designed for a courtyard.
Okay.
It was an underground construction company before.
Okay.
It's hydraulics, yeah.
Yeah. So then it makes sense.
It makes sense to keep it there, and then to identify an alternative site for kind of a combined, if we want to do a kind of a public safety campus. And it's easier to find funding for safety than
I see
And once again, the shell, the plans that we own now from CDBG, that can be put anywhere. We could put it here, there.
We would have to do environmental,
Sure.
I mean, how it's designed is for a flat area.
No, yeah.
It's have to be graded to be.
So if we did the combo, it doesn't necessarily mean it's at Monteverde. It's the combo fire police could be put somewhere else that has a larger piece of property. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Not the one more follow up.
We kind of have, like, they're not fully engineered plans for the structures that the police department, but we kind of do have, the concept plans for that.
Throw one more curveball. Can we incorporate enough room into there if and when it ever came that Altamont Maloney's and City of Angels combined into one, or shared common space or anything too? I know that'd been a conversation of.
Potentially, so Altamont Maloney's and Angels cannot combine unless the city wants to relinquish fire services to Altamont Farms.
Oh, so then City of Angels Fire would go away.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Somebody said it was just a
public
discussion,
hearing.
that is.
Okay, that was a lack of.
Gotcha.
Decision. Okay. Alright.
So have we given you a little bit of direction?
Yes.
Do you need more direction? I mean, are you?
No, I think based on the direction is I'm not going to apply for CDBG.
Yes, I know.
So, we said you will not direct staff to prepare an application, so that's fine. I am going to look at, I'll work with Chief Rorabaugh and staff to identify if there's any quick solutions here, just to put something up in the pinch, and what the cost of that would be. And then, we'll start looking at some facilities planning. So I'll bring that back just in terms of, I don't know, kind of costing wise, what that should look like, with some options. And then like I said, I have a conference call with my contact at USDA. I think it's next week. So, she's really helpful at saying what will fit or what will match, or, if it'll work for mine versus, something else. So, I'll at least get some direction in terms of if that's gonna work or not. And then I would say, depending on, what we can come up with in terms of funding, like I said, there are just things out on the horizon that may change, where then it would make sense to do debt service, or, we get, if we can only get half the funding for a project, maybe we can, borrow for the other half. USDA also has grant loan combinations, and it's very low interest.
One more question. Why, okay, you said you're not gonna apply for the CDBG. Why couldn't you apply for that, additional funding? To make that the difference?
That would need to, so it's only 3 million.
Right.
It can only be used for the fire side.
Right.
We would need to determine like in short order exactly where that is gonna be.
Could it be used towards refurbishing this site?
Okay, but let's say you did that, and then could you not find another grant, let's say for another 3 million? That
No,
would
I'm saying as
do
part of the
it.
application, we would have to identify exactly where that's going.
In 2 months, 6 months, or are we talking?
The deadline for that is. That's coming up.
And you can't combine this grant with another grant?
Yeah, that's a question.
Possibly.
But you still gotta identify
But you
where.
still have to try.
You couldn't do that. Well, if it's 6 months, you can't do it. Well, it's a deadline, is what I'm asking.
That's what I'm looking. The NOFO. If it's the upcoming one, it's the end of August. Yeah.
Got 1 month.
Yeah, I think it was August. And environmental.
Oh.
Oh,
So we.
you gotta identify and do it. Yes.
Well, and this has been part of the issue is that CDBG kept moving the marker. So they were like, well, it's gonna open in January. Never mind, it's gonna be in June. Never mind, it's gonna be in August. And even this, there's been some question about if it's even gonna be in August or if it's gonna be pushed off until September or November. So, and I will also say CDBG is a real bear to administer. So we would have to also have a consultant in place in order to administer.
And not take part of the $3 million money, or that's.
Oh, yeah, 25% every time. 25.
Let's not do that.
It is 25%.
Yeah, so.
Ridiculous. So, yeah, okay, next.
I think there is less restricted funding that we provide without backing us into a corner.
I just had that.
If we put that shell up over on Monte Verde behind the existing city hall, what could this be used for here?
We could move
City Hall,
over
but then
here.
that's fire, police, and public works over there, and that's not ideal.
Well, you're still, at least you're not adding a 10,000 square foot building. That's the issue.
Right, it's taking all that space.
Is the current
And the
plan
easement.
is a 10,000 square foot building. Yeah. So if you were just putting up kind of some temporary structures while there's a longer term plan on a different
That's
property,
kind of what I'm thinking. Right,
then
you mentioned putting
you can
a
use the modular for the
Housing.
dormitory and
Right.
housing and kitchen and everything there. We would just have to modify here
For
the
City Hall.
cubicles and whatever here.
And I know that's not
I
ideal
don't
for
know
a
that the
long
square
term.
footage in terms of that space is that far off.
It's bigger here.
The only reason I'm saying that is because you mentioned putting a RV type structure here in a pinch to fill this solution here, but I see that being beneficial more over there.
Mm-hmm.
And then later with our long term, if we have a goal for fire elsewhere, then Public Works has
That's
a
still
pretty
gonna be
nice
a
place.
Chunk to put that up. What is the problem with where it is right now?
With where what is?
The fire truck,
It's just not here.
it's not in service.
Not
Because
service.
you're here, and so if there was a
So they
call,
have
you
to
gotta
use
run
that.
over there to go get it.
You can still get it though, John, right?
Correct.
Yeah, it's
if
just
they
not,
have
it's
a
just not,
structure fire that you guys can
Right.
get
right,
it.
it's just not here.
But-
How much
Hop in
longer
and-
can
But
that?
it's pretty tough because if there was a structure fire, the original fire engine is gonna respond from here.
Right.
Right.
2 people on it. We only have 2 people on.
Right.
So they're
It's not
on
like the
fire
volunteer
working,
days.
and, you know, occasionally, when Bill wasn't working here on a regular basis, you know, Bill would go pick up that and bring it out.
Right.
But we don't have really the staffing to set up a model like that.
And for the 3 rigs that we do have, so we have 3, right? Yeah, 1, 2, okay, so you would need still a pretty big metal building, so tall, that's the issue.
One of them
Fit
is
here
stored
because it's
in
too
the
tall.
police garage,
Right.
correct,
There.
right now.
Yeah, and then we have the wildland.
There's actually 2 that are stored.
Is it the yellow one?
Yep, so there's
Okay.
2 that are stored over there. We have 2 that are inside here, and then we have the wildland.
There's a lot of rigs, so it would be a pretty good sized metal building that we'd have to have that all housed in anyway.
And you'd have to. do a
With,
city hall.
you have to have the clicker doors, right?
There and then it's here.
Yeah, it has a lot. Metal.
Places up below.
I just hate doing little fixes when that money could be put all together for the long term. It's-
Are you thinking just for the wildland right now, to get that undercover? Cause it's
Well,
just got that sunshade over it.
Well, we need to, between the wildland fire truck that's parked out front right now.
Yeah.
And the ladder truck, they have to be enclosed somewhere.
Okay.
Should we rent like Wayne's?
And one is not.
I'm like, I've been.
Correct, the wildland fire truck right now, we park behind the fire station.
Yeah.
It's got a little awning, fabric cover
Yeah.
that's doing that. The problem is, it's okay for the sun, but in the wintertime when it gets cold, that stuff can't freeze, it's just custom
Yeah.
or valves and stuff like that.
And the ladder truck's inside over there, right?
Fire truck's inside.
Things that make you go, Okay, so this comes back, what do we do here?
No.
We've
not
given
doing
you direction,
anything.
you're gonna.
We're not
Start
investing.
digging in.
That's our flag.
I'm going to
Look
look
into
into
stuff.
facilities. We'll look at short-term banding solutions. I mean, if it comes back and it's gonna cost $150,000, I'm gonna say,
It's gonna.
Oh, yeah,
Have you priced a metal building?
Not in a long time.
It's gonna be
that'll be 80.
easy.
It's gonna be, and I'm not about spending big money like that when it could be put
Right.
in the longer term, unfortunately.
and it may not, there's just a lot on the right, so it may not take that
Right.
long. So-
And also, if he just is looking for something temporary back here, something like that could be moved to a yard to be used for a yard.
So as long as we don't lose that investment.
Yeah,
Or we
Hey,
could rent
pick it up.
someplace.
or you could sell it.
Yeah, we could.
Those things aren't on surplus, we can't buy somebody else's use cover thing.
There's always that Facebook Marketplace.
Craigslist.
Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace. Okay.
All right, moving along here. We are on item G. Approval of employment agreement with Rebecca Callen for city administrator position as negotiated. Brett.
So back in May, we met, reviewed her contract. You guys all did a performance evaluation and she met the requirements to receive an increase. And we have come to this agreement. Legal has looked at it and I'm bringing it to you today.
There you have it. Okay, council, questions, comments?
Nope.
Anybody? Quick like? Public comment on this item? Anybody have any public comment? Anybody online? Okay, so we'll be bringing this back, looking for, a motion.
So moved.
Alvin,
Second.
Caroline. I will say that I am a no vote on this contract, and I have a couple quick reasons. Primarily, it's a 10% increase, and just compare 10% across the board to other staff members that are getting 5%. And 10% is just always too steep for me. Has absolutely nothing to do with performance or personal or anything like that, because I'm very confident in the items that we have put into place with this contract to make sure that it all falls into place. But I typically am going to say no on a 10% increase, just because it creeps into the high range that I'm not comfortable with. So I'm a no. Gretel?
I'm a yes.
Okay. You
I
don't have to
don't-
say why. I wanted to justify. So it's a
You can though, if you want it.
Yeah.
3.
I don't look at it as a 10% raise, I look at it as a 5.8% because we were at a CIP of 4.2. So I am fine with that.
And I look at it as bringing her up to market.
So Rose, this is a 311.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item 8 is administration report.
All right, what do we got? Okay, Angels Creek, across the street here. Council gave direction at the last meeting, because we're still waiting on, this state that we still haven't heard anything back from. So we went ahead and had staff go out and do gas readings at the mouth of the mine. They came back non-detectable for H2S. Did water sampling. I don't think we've received that back yet. Okay. Some of the samples take a while to get back. However, we kind of just thought if the gas readings are non-detectable, then probably the water will be non-detectable too. So we went ahead and issued just a public statement. You can find it right when you go on our website right now, that we're opening with caution. We just recommend people don't consume things out of the creek because I don't know. The state hasn't finished their testing. For fish and game, you're not actually supposed to consume any fish out of the site anyway. You're only supposed to consume them down
When they swim
further.
further?
Right.
Really?
Or upstream
Here, where do
Yeah.
they plant it? Right here, though, don't they?
Murphy's.
Okay.
Well, they,
So do they plant it here? I thought they have,
But the state has
haven't
not given it, they've put a halt on any fisheries being able to sell to like for right now until their samplings come back. So the only thing I will say also is there's a lot of snow melt, so the water's cold and it is
Dangerous.
it is heightened. So just caution in terms of just be smart and swim safe and there you go. Downtown sidewalks have been going. Sutton Construction's been doing a really good job. They've been working really well with the businesses downtown to try to mitigate as much impact to the businesses as possible. They, have been out during all this heat and been doing a really, really great job. So kudos to them. So that should be done here pretty soon.
there's been some chatter on Facebook about the removal of trees
So
downtown.
there are no trees that have been removed.
Yeah.
All the trees are still standing. I've urged people, if you don't
Was
believe
the-
it,
was
go
the,
and look yourself.
Was it that they reevaluated the tree situation with certain roots and were able to like grind them down, or what are they doing with
We've
them?
not evaluated any trees. So basically, if a sidewalk had lifted, they are grinding it down.
Okay.
If it is kind of beyond repair, then they pull the entire slab, that entire portion out or cut it out and then just re-pour it. So.
They didn't have to grind any roots that you know of?
Not that I know of. I think they just, the sidewalk in that particular section is gonna be thinner because they ground it down. So, it's for another discussion. There's still plans in terms of what to do on Main Street. And so, it includes, bump outs and all sorts of different things in terms of what that downtown Angels plan look like. And some of it just inclusive of that construction had trees getting removed. So I think at some point it'll probably have to be a conversation that needs to happen. Those trees are not conducive to sidewalks because they do lift the sidewalk. So we'll continue to repair those sidewalks as long as that particular type of tree is in the ground. But,
It also has to do with when they're planted and how deeply watered they are, so that the roots go down and not go out. And so we don't have a really good water plan down to right to the front. So that would have to probably be addressed as well.
yeah, so I think, you know, it would be premature to just go and hack them all down. I think if construction warrants it, if we're able to identify some funding, or if Caltrans extended one of their projects to downtown, then obviously that would be contemplated then. But at this time, all we were doing is just trying to mitigate liability to the city, so there's not a tripping hazard. And
Well, thank you for answering the Facebook
I did see,
concerns.
like,
Because, and I don't know if people know this, but it's hard, we can't participate in that because of Brown Act violations. So it's hard for us to.
Yeah, so if I see things just getting completely running off the rails, I will go from the city.
well, there's an expectation that if it says Angels Camp on it, that it's us and it's our page to monitor and be the host of, and it's not. It's
not.
it's a bulletin board or something, and that's great. That's wonderful that people are utilizing a resource, but
It's a little frustrating
it
just
is frustrating.
because go to the city website.
Yeah, right.
Because I really try to make sure.
It's all there.
that
There's
it's
a
all
lot
there.
of citizens who actually are in the know and say that to
We
people.
try to,
So
there
we try
are.
to keep information on our Facebook, so
Yeah.
follow our Facebook. We are always posting information on there. We're always posting information on our website. So it is a little frustrating
I know.
just because, you know, I don't know, we can issue a press release, I can talk about it here, I can share information, you know, other people, I can, you know, hang
sometimes I think,
notes in
and
the
this,
post
you can be
office.
horrified by this if you want, but actually like a 30-second video, because people will watch it and then they don't, you know, it's just one of those things that just is a different way of speaking to the public. So maybe getting on, maybe having us rotate doing it, or you doing it, or other staff members doing it, just these videos, I think might actually help some of
It's
this.
trying to get it to where we needed to go.
Yeah.
It's
Which
because
form?
which
Because
form?
the-
Yeah.
Because
it's-
I've had people that I've said, well, we put it, you know, whatever it is,
Yeah.
being the subject. Well, we put a press release in the newspaper. I don't even, okay. We put it on Facebook. Well, I'm not on social
Put it at the
media.
post office.
We put it at the
Yeah.
post office. I don't go to the post office.
Yeah.
So there's not a one.
I don't have time to go to a meeting. I can't, yeah.
So there's not a one solution, and there's certain times where, short of going and hanging a flyer directly on their door,
Yeah.
they're not going to get the message, and they will be the ones that complain. So, I would just,
I think, well,
When
I
I
reach out to some of them personally.
I do too.
And I know, yeah, you do too. And just to say, hey, just to let you know, I'm a council member. If you have any questions, but I can't post on Facebook, but here's some, you know, answering your questions. And then, if they want to call me, I can always, you know, talk to them over the phone. But it's, but like you said, there's that 5% that are not gonna be a piece of it.
right, and I think that it's just putting it in perspective for council. So there were many studies that were done in terms of customer service. So when you hear all of this and you see, and those are all the comments,
It's a
very small percentage.
Right.
So
it's just in your face.
it's just in your face,
Yeah.
that's all it is, so just bear that in mind. Utica Park,
That's the other one.
that's the other one. So again, I moved the projects so that it's right, like if you hover on the City Hall section on our website, it's right there. I moved it right there, and then we have different sections of whatever projects, and we try to keep it updated with timelines and information and things that people need to know. I have the CCC crews that have been down there. I've lived in Angels on and off for, you know, 30-something years. My husband's been here for over 50, and there are things in that water mine that we've never seen before.
Yeah.
They're pretty amazing.
Wow.
So it's you know, you kind of drive by and you're like, wow, I did not know that was there. It was 50 years of
I
growth.
know that big old foundation was on the other
No, I
side.
didn't have
I
no
was like, where's that concrete?
It's pretty cool. So he is going to send me some pictures because he's taken a lot of pictures as they've been doing this
That's
demo
cool.
work. So we'll add that to the website. Chris also took pictures, because part of the arborist report was not just to cut all the trees down. It was also to trim the trees and prune them so that we could maintain the health of the trees that we were keeping. But, so we hired, someone to come in and he soft climbed those trees.
Saw that.
And so Chris got some pictures of those, so we'll put that on. So there's just, you know, I thought all that was really interesting. And then we're continuing to meet with the contractor in terms of trying to determine the site plan. So once we have a general site plan, and so 3 million seems like a lot of money, and it's really not a lot of money. So we're trying to be
Efficient,
efficient and cost effective in terms of where things will go so that we can mark all the boxes in terms of what's required of the grant, and get the most bang for the buck. So if we can, you know, kind of multi-use, you know, particular components where they'll check 3 boxes instead of 1, then we're gonna do that. So, so that will start coming here pretty soon. And so as that information comes out, we'll start sharing that, and then obviously it'll be on the website, and then there will be public outreach opportunities for that as well. The nice part is there's been several people that have reached out to us that want to donate trees. And so we're holding on to their information and let them know when we're to that point, then we will work with them to identify the right types of trees. I also did do a whole page on why trees were removed. The thing is, trees have a lifespan, and some trees, even though they might have like 100 or 200 year lifespan, that's in like the best conditions. So on the side of the park where the playground was, that was sand. So trees didn't do super well on that side. And then you've got root issues. So certain trees, they need deep root capacity, and they just couldn't break the roots down. So they had holes in the base of the trees. They were rotting from the inside out. And so those trees really did have to go. And that's all documented in the arborist report, which is all available on our website.
I think that the tree thing is a really great opportunity for outreach. Also, just if there's legacy families who want to donate a tree in memory of somebody in their family. Yeah, and maybe they can even do some sort of monument to commemorate every family that donated a tree or something like that. I think it's a really nice opportunity for us. For that next generation, we could get 300 trees. No. But
Is the park currently being watered, or is all the water shut off? Somebody,
The water
it
shut
looks
off,
super dry.
but staff are hand
Okay, just to make sure. Okay.
We also are scheduling our next step on the water treatment plant. So the state is going to come up and do a tour. We're still, they say 4 to 6 months, but I'm going to say 6 months, away from funding from the state, which is okay. At least it's going in the right direction. But so that's exciting. So we're working on that. I just attended the wildfire workshop last week. It was great attendance. It was, we had myself, Michelle, our finance director, Chris Oakland, our public works superintendent, Nathan Pry, our deputy fire chief, Alvin came for part of the time. So that was good. We had all of the water agencies there, as well as fire agencies, including Cal Fire was there, Calaveras was there, and the main speaker was, his name is Kevin, I don't remember the last name, but he was the Town of Paradise city manager. So he and I have a different relationship because we're the only city there. So he engaged a lot with me specifically because we have different things that we need to consider in terms of policy. And so we have a lot of really good takeaways, things that we're like, oh, I didn't really think about that, or oh, that's a good idea, or oh, we actually do have that. So it was a really great thing. It is going to make a lot more work for us, but it's all good. And then, Council of Governments just sent out their evacuation assessments needs, draft out. So staff have gone through that. The county is going through it. Just some minor comments on it, and then our hope is we'll be able to bring that to council for adoption, Board of Supervisors for adoption, here this next month. That plan is really good because that is the catalyst for some additional grant funding in terms of planning. I will say, one of the major hiccups in terms of evacuation is circulation. And the city of Angels is in a unique position in that we have 2 major state highways that crisscross us. So we have a lot of bottlenecks here. And we also have the main county evacuation facility, which is the Fairbanks. So regardless of where an event happens in the county, you're gonna come through Angels Camp, and that is problematic, and you have a lot of people coming. So it does identify some additional extension roads that need to happen. They're contemplated in our general plan, but we will have to figure out a way to address those. And this plan helps us to help COG identify some additional grant funding for that planning, which will then allow us to identify grant funding to meet those needs. So that's all I've got.
Moving on to item number 9, council report. Alvin, we'll start with you.
On that, I don't have that because COG was skipped last month and Utica was skipped last month. I did attend the wildfire education workshop. I only have the gentleman's name is Kevin. I didn't write his last. I have scarred you somewhere. But it was very informative about like elected officials and what your role is and trying to stay in those boundaries and not go all crazy. Chief of police, make him. Yep, thank you. Make him in charge of evacuation maybe because he's going to be the guy doing it. So there's going to be all these other people. There was all sorts of good stuff in there. So it was pretty awesome. If anybody would like to look at any of it, there it is.
He's also going to be sending us the presentations from the day, so we'll be able to share that information as well. Also, it was the first time I've been able to meet the county new OES director. So that was good.
So I attended a farmer's market on Friday night where I drew the winning name for ACBA's giveaway.
You didn't pick me.
I didn't, and to be honest, I don't even remember the name of the person that I picked. It was somebody that.
He's a Ghostbuster.
Okay. So anyways, it was wonderful. They sold all the tickets. They sold a total of 300 max or 500 max. So they sold all, tapped out, and then we drew the ticket. That was fun.
That's great.
We had LAFCO last night. It was a very, very record quick meeting. We basically moved forward with the public hearing for September 18th for the sphere of influence and the MSR on UPUD up in Murphy's. And then we appointed delegates for voting members at the Cal LAFCO meeting that we'll be going to in October. And that was the only business we had.
But John did bring up that we're next on the list.
Yeah, City of Angels Sphere of Influence is going to be next on the list, which won't be until but it's been 10 years.
Yeah.
So that was wonderful, and that's influential. That's good with potential annexations and all the things that couldn't need to happen after all this time. So yeah, thank you for reminding me on that. Caroline.
I attended the Museum Foundation meeting, and so Joe Oliveira is departing as our president of the foundation because he's relocating. It leaves only 7 members on the foundation, and which is the minimum amount. So they're looking for some new members. So if there's anybody that you might know that's interested, or if anyone's interested, they did approve but they meet the first Thursday of the month for 2 hours, 10 to noon.
I have somebody in my.
You're not busy.
So they did approve their budget, which was great. Well, you can't join anyway, so. Asking for the public. They did approve their budget, which was great. They are going to move forward with the Night at the Museum fundraiser, which is going to be an evening event on October 14th. Martin's report, he did report that, so he thought they were going to come in short on attendance revenue, but actually they're going to go ahead and hit that goal. It was 75,000, and it's probably going to be closer to 80,000 in attendance this year, which is fantastic. He's got a lighting project that's been permitted, bringing all the lights into full functionality. That's being paid for by the city, and new lights will last 20 years, so that's kind of nice. So he's got a couple of projects moving forward, but the fire, whatever that was, the display that they did is now done and complete. So they're moving on. They've closed that grant, which is good. And I think that's it, or museum.
Yeah, the one thing that we'll probably want to talk about with Aqued and Jesse and I still need to get together is it on both sides. It seems like the farmers market being at the museum is like the perfect marriage, and so there may be contemplation if both sides are agreeable to have that be more of a permanent location for it. It has really benefited the farmers market, and it's actually benefited the museum and the research bureau.
Right.
So it's just been kind of a win-win scenario on both sides.
It feels more like a farmer's market and less like a night at the park, or a concert in the park, I guess is what it used to be like, more of a concert.
How's the church? Have you heard any feedback from parking or anything? Nobody's left a big ton of garbage in there.
Right.
No, have garbage committees, and they're also giving a stipend to the church.
Okay.
Yeah. But I do like the parking. The parking situation at the church is a lot better than how it was at Utica.
And there's
I
a
mean, the
lot more
only downfall are the layers, yeah, the shades nice, but the layers, it might not be conducive to.
Yeah, the older,
ADA.
for the.
But if they can shuttle them around on a golf cart or something, I think that there's ways to come up with solutions.
It's been pretty successful.
It's been really successful, and I haven't heard any knock on wood.
There's a few parents out there,
Is there?
but not.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, they haven't even gone.
Overall, though, I think it's
well,
been.
then they don't have. And I won't be a
Social
reader this
media.
Friday. So.
Oh, good.
In the heat, in the nice cool.
What is it?
I had this.
Hot. I think it's supposed to stay hot for a while, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, Greta, what you got?
Well, let's see, I got it from my class. I went to the all hazards meeting, which is talked about bringing drink. Tomorrow at 9.
That's Zoom too.
No, I have to be in person.
If you look at the email, he puts the link in the
Zoom it.
email,
Yeah, but
not
I think
on the agenda.
I think he said that I had to be there because they don't have enough people in attendance. I'm gonna look again. I'm pretty sure. I don't know.
Call Dennis.
It's just, yes, I know. It's good. Okay. But at least I got the right date. And then I do the farmer's market, I do salads down there.
Okay, for correspondence, we have 2 items. I would like to comment on the second item, which is an anonymous letter, which I personally have received 2 of these in my mailbox. And I would like to state that this individual has made these 2 comments and they remain anonymous. So in the second email, or I'm sorry, second letter I'm reading, it complains that their complaints have gone unanswered. I just want to state for the record that I've not been able to answer because this individual is anonymous and I cannot. So I will, however, say that the items that they're concerned about seem to have all been addressed or resolved. It just takes time. It just takes time. It just takes time.
Well,
What I'd like to say.
The other issue is it's only a 20-minute zone during certain days and certain hours. So.
But that guy has moved.
Yeah, it's
So
resolved.
if that's resolved, the
And during that time that vehicle was parked there, it did not impede on the sidewalk or the crosswalk in any way, and they're resolved. So for the record, they're resolved, and it's very difficult to respond.
And
what
I
was your
would
second thing?
urge, if people want to make complaints, I mean, we have the portal, it's
Right.
right on our website.
Absolutely.
Compliance.
That's another video you need to do.
And with your complaint, we do require your contact information because we want to understand exactly what it is that you're asking for. Sometimes what we've noticed is when people do these anonymous, submissions, there's not enough information for us to even.
But this one was good, it had pictures.
This one had pictures. A lot of them are really vague. Like, they don't have an address, they don't have the.
Do they have to be a member of the city? Do they have to live within city limits? No. Okay, so they don't have to validate their.
Yeah, if they see something going on that's a health hazard, please tell us.
But at one point, they could be anonymous. We've gone back and now we're restricted. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Just
most
to
definitely.
limit the, like,
Yeah.
complainers, that it's not really a code issue, it's more of a.
Thank you. Okay, item 11, calendar, Rose.
So tomorrow's the IRWMA meeting for Chris and Rebecca, along with CPPA for Gretel. I do have Rebecca being the greeter, so make sure you guys go say hi
Bring me a popsicle.
on Friday.
Yeah, and ice dust.
And then Monday, the 24th is the solid waste task force meeting.
Yep.
So she sent out a revision today on some minutes. The 25th I have is the UWPA meeting.
Mhm.
Okay. COG, now we're into August, COG on the 2nd, museum on the 3rd, all hazards on the 8th, and then planning meeting on the 10th. So, other than that, everything's okay. Moving along.
Future agenda items?
So, we do want to try to work on an agenda item just to do an overall Utica Park update. And then, Councilmember Chiscornia had reached out asking about the option to, put a splash pad at the park. We've been identifying costs and maintenance and ongoing operations, et cetera, for that. So we just wanted to, if you guys want to have a council item on that, we can certainly bring that forward. It would be August 1st. We reached out to various vendors and also agencies that have had them or have them pulled out, just so we have an understanding of what the maintenance requirements for them are. The best way
Those
to,
are where they shoot the water and it arches up and the kids run through it.
yeah,
And do you shut those off in the winter so they don't freeze? Is
there's
that?
a whole bunch of stuff you have to do. Basically, a splash pad is the equivalent to having a pool at grade.
A what? A
At
pool?
grade.
At grade.
Oh, really? Yeah, right.
I know the one at Disneyland that they just redid it, Town. Yeah, is that working? And they just got it.
So, but we can have that conversation, if that's what council wants. We can put that on for August 1st. We should, be able to bring forward planning sources, contract, auditor selection, because that close to, we're doing a review on that one right now. And then we just got, the capital asset policy, the GAM limit, which is the appropriations limit, which is a requirement. There is the public hearing for the Angels Creek Trail mitigation. That was the environmental. What is that? Public hearing, that'll be August 1st.
All of these.
Oh, this is on our agenda. Gotcha.
This is
Gonna be
upcoming
coming.
agenda items.
Mhm.
And then the fee schedule for 23-24. There are some fees that we wanted to bring forward to you to constantly that are either need to be updated or.
Okay.
And. Well,
I got stuff in front of me. Well, one of them's not. I don't know where else to put it though. So Utica, We talked about having a joint JPA meeting and get everybody together. So the first thing we'd like to do is have like a company barbecue and tour, a later afternoon tour, because he was doing them kind of middle of the day and sometimes they were kind of hard to make. So we do an afternoon tour, like maybe from 2 to 5, and then we could meet at Murphy's Park and do some sort of a quick little appetizer drink thing, but have all JPA members there, say hello to each other, meet everybody, and then after that, we would sit down and talk about the future of what the JPA is and that type of stuff. So the dates that were kind of kicked out, and if you send me out an email to all of us or whoever, and I don't know if staff can make the tour, I don't know how staffing falls, they're welcome to join the tour also too, just because it's kind of really fun and interesting. But you have to figure out staff.
Did they have some dates or you just?
18th, 23rd, and the 24th of August. I kind of what we threw out there.
18th, 23rd, or 24th?
24th. So, I mean, we can look at a calendar now, or we can get an email and everybody gets their stuff a little together, but
Yeah.
probably an answer within the next week, would be my guess.
put out a schedule.
There you go. Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
Yes,
that's,
that's on the scheduling poll.
Yeah.
If you want to bring up our comments.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
we're gonna have an employee, kind of recognition lunch on August 2nd. It'll be at,
Gateway Park.
yes,
What was it again? August what?
August 2nd.
At 11 o'clock, 11.
That starts. Also, if you haven't come by City Hall to for City.
They all got, we've got it.
I got it.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I got more. We're ready. I'm hurrying. I got a bunch. Next one for me on future agenda items would be employee retention. We need to look at keeping employees and figure out how we're going to kind of handle that. So whether it's COLAs, one-time raises, bonuses, something, I think we need to look into that.
We're negotiating.
Closed session.
Oh.
Then I would love to throw in something because this kind of popped in here this afternoon. I'm going to read here for 1 second. Long-term resident, former city council member and mayor, Museum Foundation Joe Olivera is moving out of the area. We want to thank him for serving our community, wish him well in his next chapter. I would like to say thank you to Joe Olivera. He's an amazing individual. I just like him a lot, which brings me to this next future agenda item. I would maybe like to go back to a 1-year mayor term from the 2 that we're at now. I know Joe wanted that, and I mean, it's just kind of a fun and exciting thing to do, and it's an opportunity if everybody wants it. And me and Isabel are 4. You guys may miss out on since we're in a 2-year term, if somebody wants it. So I would like to look into 1-year mayoral terms rather than 2-year.
Is that what it was, Joe?
Used to be one.
Yes, it used to be 1, and then it got kicked out when
It got kicked out and when I started, yeah.
Right.
Because we had all new council.
All new
so,
council.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it was, if I remember right.
Uh-huh.
So I'd like to kick that back in because I just know that it's just a fun opportunity. It's nice to have I have the little plaque posted on my
You get a plaque?
toolbox. You get to keep that.
Ah.
I mean, it's on my toolbox, and you get to go do some speaking, engagements like you did too, and different things. So it's fun and exciting and something different. So but I'd like to kick that idea around. And that's all I have.
Nothing. Do you have anything for the agenda?
Oh, you need to add a
splash
splash pad.
Yeah, she's got.
Listen, I've been to a lot of splash pads in a lot of states. And they're really, really cool and they're really awesome, especially when you have heat like this. So I understand there's maintenance and stuff, that there's maintenance with everything. But when you look at the fact we have a lot of heat and we have a lot of young kids, I just think
They can get the crick. Oh, no, they can't.
On this side, not the other side. Don't drink the water. Is that it? Looking for a motion for adjournment.
So.
Alvin, second? I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.